me, how's it hanging? How's it happen? You guys know this is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast, sponsored by Dark Future Systems, the best for your custom compute needs. Whether you custom computer for gaming, streaming, creative, music, business, they will build the best PC for you. Get $100 off on your entire build. Use code CBPOD at darkfuturesystems.com. Link to the podcast below. Also, be sure to subscribe to the Chord Progression Podcast. Do it. Now it's time for feature presentation. This is a fun one because we brought on Aaron from My Epic to the podcast. We dive deep into the brand new album, Loriella, which came out on June 28th. And we dive deep not only into the themes and why it was written, but we also dive deep into My Epic's journey and overall social media and why deep connections with people and forming those deep connections and powerful connections with your fans are so important. You guys ready? Let's go! Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression Podcast, it is now time for you to sit back, relax, and enjoy what's about to be one hell of a conversation with this guy right here. This guy has a brand new album called Loriella coming out on June 28th. And when I read through the press release, the record said it was about having lived long enough to lose your innocence and still find joy, peace, hope, and faith in this world, which, let's be honest, it's 2024. We went through the pandemic. What could be more perfect than that over the past 5 years? So please welcome Mr. Aaron from My Epic to the podcast. So Aaron, welcome to the Chord Progression Podcast.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me, Kevin. I really appreciate it.
Dude, it is fantastic having you here. It is fantastic being able to talk to you. Even the conversation we had before we hit the record button, absolutely epic. So My Epic is a band name. That really fits, man.
Well, I'm glad. I mean, we picked it like 16 years ago. And I basically, people ask like, why is that the band name? And the answer is always because I lost the vote. But we knew we wanted a sound that was very dynamic, very low, very beautiful at times, very heavy at times. And so, we didn't know that like 2 years later, it was going to be like everything became epic, but what's done is done. And so might as well like lean into it. Right.
You have to. And I'm curious to hear, like, because you said you lost the vote, what you lost the vote for. But I mean, it makes sense right after, you came up with a band name and it's just you release your first record. And then right after that, it was, epic was like the phrase that everyone used on it. It was the slang term for like 2009, 2010. It's
yes.
Like, this is epic fail. And you guys are just kind of on the forefront of that. And when you get something lucky like that to happen, you got to lean into it. You got to have fun with it. Why resist it when you have this like opportunity in front of you just to use something that just instantly went like viral or hidden pop culture and you were already set up for success in that. So it's already natural.
Yeah, I think if we'd had more business acumen or like marketing acumen, like we definitely started on the whole just like punk. We grew up on punk rock and grunge and early hardcore and like early emo when it was like still kind of a branch of hardcore. And so we were really just wanting to be like make art that we were proud of, and like all the marketing side was like that's garbage, like that's all stuff we don't want to care about. So we didn't lean into it at the time. We didn't lean against it. We just didn't care about it. And it's only until recently that I've, become like, oh, if we're just a little smarter in how we tell our story, more people will find us because more people would like us if they knew we were here. So I wish I could say we leaned into it at the time. We didn't lean into it away from it. We were kind of agnostic to everything except for like writing songs and making our best art, playing. I mean, connecting with people was always the important part. So I'm just catching up. So maybe, maybe it's not too late to lean into, a 12-year-old, marketing term.
It might not be the worst thing in the world, but it still makes sense in that capacity when it really hit, you were kind of agnostic about it, not leaning into it, but not trying to pull away from it. Where you said the focus was on making the best music, making the best art. And when it comes to creating those connections and creating those fans, you want to be able to develop that connection. That is the most important thing. But of course, as we've gone on, the art is there. And, think about back in the early 2010s, the way that music was consumed and the way that people got into music, the way that people connected with music has massively changed from then to now.
For sure.
With streaming, concerts are completely different. Of course, everything went through with the pandemic. The overall just fluctuation in pop culture with what sounds are popular, what is being more consumed, what genres are more popular, what is trending. And of course, over the past couple of years on TikTok, what sounds are going viral, seeing, especially in the rock and metal world, bands like Catch Your Breath, Electric Callboy, Bad Omen, Spirit Box, Sleep Token, Lorna Shore, Knock Loose, like pick up on those moments and really branch out. It's not necessarily a thing of like, it is a thing of developing those connections, but the key is how are you going to be able to get people to notice you so you can develop those connections and to say, hey, we're here in today's day and age, in which the marketing side is always going to be evolving.
Yeah, I think of it a lot in the terms of like, it's a frame. Like, you know, you do a great piece of art, like the frame could mess it up, or it could help draw attention to how good the art is. But the frame initially isn't part of the art, you know, until then it gets added, like, you know, put it in a museum. And so I think, yeah, framing as like my other job, as we talked before, as a filmmaker, and framing is very important. Like how you show something to people is almost the whole ball game. And so context is really important. So it's like people getting one of our records at the moment where it was the record they needed, or it was the sound that it was exciting to them, has as much to do with anything as like the art itself. Like how did their best friend who went through the same moment with them say, dude, listen to this. And they're both like, yeah, this is our lives right now, is so important. And so putting some attention into the frame, just like we would the art, like I don't want to fumble the ball at the 5-yard line, you know, like spend all this time writing a song and then to not care at all. I mean, there can be like a DIY integrity to it. But for me, it's like, no, I want to serve, like the art is there because of the things we've lived. We want to express these things and you want to connect with people. I mean, I once heard it said that the two most powerful words in the world are Me Too, before the whole Me Too movement. But to say to someone, oh, me too, is like, wow, you know what I've been through. And that's what a lot of songs boil down to. When you like a song, it's because you resonate with the anger or the love or the heartbreak or something. And it says it in just the right way that you feel like it's your song. You take it into yourself. And so like, I think we've been around for a while, but I feel like we're just kind of coming into being savvy about the whole thing instead of like, no, we're artists closing our eyes, instead of like engaging the whole part. So it's fun. Like, you know, we've signed a new record label. We've been able to do this new record in a totally new way. And so it really feels like coming into our full power in this season, even though we've been around for a long time, we've sort of been under the radar. So it's exciting now to like, yeah, and you're right. It's changed so much. When we came in, it was like, CDs were everything. And then it was iTunes was everything. And then a couple of years ago, it was like Spotify playlist. And now it's like lots of playlists and there's all new curators. And so, you know, there's always thought to go into like, yeah, it's cool if we make good artwork, but then if we make good art, but then if we fumble the ball at the 5-yard line, you know, if the music video is offensive to the song or like is the opposite of the song, then it could ruin it. So you're right. We got to think about the whole picture for sure.
I think the best way you described it, especially from your perspective, working in film, working in videography, the framing of it absolutely makes sense. Because when we're watching movies, we're watching TV, we're watching music videos, just how you frame things and how you position your camera to show off these different images is going to absolutely change everything. Whether you have the camera position low, looking up at the person, and it provides more of this. For that person, it provides more of this like overpowering, you know, having a control just because they're this imposing figure. But if you take that same exact shot and have that camera instead of pointing up, move it up higher and have it pointing down, now it looks in a completely different perspective, a completely different light. So having that idea of how the framing of it just really amplifies how you're going to be, you know, connecting with people, how you're going to be going out and trying to get people to notice you is such an important thing. And especially, you know, you take a look at some of the biggest bands out there and the ones that are absolutely hitting, especially in the marketing side in today's day and age, they understand that, and they understand when it comes to music video, like what's going to be the thing that's going to make this music video pop, but also relate incredibly well to the video itself. Because you can have those viral moments. You can have those moments where people just freak out. But if they're only the smallest section of a clip, and that's the only thing that's part of that music video, you're going to get a viral moment, but you're not going to get the long-standing sustainability going forward. If you have something, I'll use Electric Callboy as an example because they've got the most wacky music videos out there in terms of what their songs can really work on. And the framing of it is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to not be taken serious. It's supposed to be enjoyed. But when you watch it and you see all these different fun things, you want to go back into the full song and you see how much that actually plays into the entire thing. I've seen some other bands I've had in the podcast, unfortunately, where that one moment that's being framed, especially in a music video perspective on TikTok, gets a hit. But then you watch the rest of the music video and it really doesn't connect to anything in the song until you get to that moment.
Right.
And then it kind of gets lost. And it's a different mindset, a different game now because of how artists have to be the marketers for their music and how they have to go out and try and get people to check it out and listen to it in a completely different space, using so many different unique styles given the platform that they're on. But if you don't have the full substance there of the art, then you're going to get people to show up and then drop back.
That's interesting you say that. I've been very resistant to social media most of my life because I've just wanted to be very present where I'm at. And whenever I have done any social media, it makes me feel like I'm trying to pay attention to an alternate reality that's not the one I'm standing in. And I want to be present with the people I'm with. Like I'm married and I have a daughter and I love my neighbors and I have a band and a business and all these things. And I want to be with the people I'm with. But I have started this record in the past. Our bassist, who's one of my best friends and was in the band until 2 years ago for like 15 years, he did all the social media and he still didn't do a lot of it, but he would handle it. And I would sometimes hand him like content and be like, here you go. This time around, the band is shuffled around a little bit. I mean, everyone who's in the band has been in the band for a long time, but we kind of shuffled the duties. And I was like, I'll take on social media because I make content for a living. I don't make a lot of social media content. I mean, we'll make short pieces out of the stuff we make for our clients to use on social media. And we oftentimes will make the pieces with that in mind. But it's been really refreshing this time I've been trying to put out something on social media at least every other day, if not every day. And what's been interesting to me, Kevin, is that like, if I was just trying to be a content creator, like that term almost to me would be offensive. Like, I don't just want to make something that fills a spot. Like content makes it feels like it's just something to fill space. Like that to me is, if somebody else is comfortable with that term, it's fine. But to me, it's like, I'm not just making something to fill a space. Like I'm trying to communicate something. I'm also not thinking I'm bigger than my britches and all of my stuff is high art or whatever, but like I'm making it because it matters to me and I'm hoping it'll matter to someone else. And we've been around for a while because we've mattered enough to enough people. But what's been interesting is making all this social media stuff has been fun because it's connected to all the art we've been laboring to make. You know, we've got like 8 or 9 records now, 4 full lengths and like, 4 or 5 EPs over the last 15 years that we, believe in. Of course, the older they get, the more cringier they are for you as a person. It's like looking at your yearbook, but still all of them had the same integrity at the time of like the best thing we could do. And the cool thing for me about putting social media out is it's a value add. It's like, it's drawing attention to the art that I've worked so years of my life. Like this record's taken 3.5 years and we weren't sitting around. We were working our butts off, but now doing social media feels like it has value because it's like, well, it's just directing people to the deep stuff that we actually really like. There's all this thought in the songs and in the record and the music video. Now the social media can just be very quick. I can make something like a song will take us a month to 2 years to do. A music video takes a couple months to knock out. What the stuff I make for my clients, it takes, 3 to 6 months from initial conversation to shooting it, to editing it, to releasing it. It's nice to be able to sit down, have an idea today. Like today I had an idea, I shot it, I edited it in an hour, I released it. And I'm seeing we're getting new followers and people who are finding the songs. And I know that it has this foundation of like the art that really matters. So it could feel disposable, but I think when it's connected, and that's not to like, man, I don't want to yuck anyone else's yum, but for me, like it's because it's connected to something that is meaningful to me. It all kind of feels like it feels good for once. I'm still not feeling like personally drawn into social media, but I am like enjoying like running the band's accounts and like connecting, like you said, and like trying to figure, I don't know if I've quite figured out, like, I think there's people who are actually genius at the marketing side and they're way better at that than they even are like their own songwriting. Usually people who are succeeding on social media are very talented, period. They're talented, end of conversation. But it seems like some of them have like figured out the medium even way ahead of their songwriting, and so that to me is interesting to see like, oh, this guy figured out the social media. He's a phenomenal singer or whatever, but maybe he doesn't quite have the depth in his songs yet. I'm just learning so much, Kevin, so I'll take whatever you got.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm still learning myself as well. And I take a look at the stuff that I've done where with the podcast channel, I've got all the episodes on there. Yeah, on social media, I'll post small clips to get people into it. But then also I'm doing like reaction content, one song every single Friday. It still feeds into what we're doing here. It still feeds into, connecting with the artist, talking about the art. but I'm doing it in a different way that sometimes is maybe a little bit more palatable, a little bit more of a different speed, but still brings in a new audience to go and check it out. Because every time I do a reaction video that involves like baby metal, anytime I do a reaction that involves The Warning, anytime I do a reaction that involves Bandmade, anytime like that, like I see a lot of great numbers coming in. And I'm like, that's fantastic. And then it's okay. How do we keep them in? How do we keep them going? That's always a huge key. But at that point in time, like at least I have the visualization of, exactly who I am and what we're doing here. That's a huge piece. So that connectivity is such a strong thing, because I've seen a lot of bands out there where I've talked about this. I think it was with Lauren Babick from Red Handed Denial, where artists are getting burnt out based on working on social media, trying to get their stuff out there. And they're always like, okay, I have to do this like thing where it's, react to these like emo songs and which ones I've liked or not, or do these different like trends that, yeah, they're connected to your music because you're reacting to the same style of music, but they have no real connection back to the art that you're really making. And that's where a lot of the trouble comes in compared to when I talked with Adam from Oceano, where he's excited about all the social media stuff because it's a new medium for him to create. But the main thing is it's all connective to what you're creating, and it's all expanding on that universe. Yes. And allowing people to come in and get in there. And of course, it all depends on how you use it. I've seen the band Opal and Sky, who now they're finally going out and playing live for the first time this year. And they're huge online because of the fun videos they make about, just the metal scene, but it all relates back to the music that they're making once again as well. I've got a friend, her name is Erica. She figured out like how to become big on TikTok a couple of years ago, making a lot of the kind of like reaction content, that stuff like that, the lists, all that fun stuff. But it was all related to like what she liked with music. And she was able to like pivot that to now she has her own like DJ spot on SiriusXM Octane. And it's just like, I looked at it, I'm like, I remember when she was just like trying to grow, and now where she's at, it's an absolutely incredible thing to look at.
Well, yeah.
But it all depends upon social media and how you can connect it back to the art that is really in you.
Yeah, I think my fear for me about jumping into social media was just that it's all very disposable. And I'm a firm believer, if I've learned anything in my life, one of the things is that valuable things are costly. Like cheap things aren't very anything that's easy to get is cheap, and this value doesn't hang around long. So like deep friendships, they take a long time to grow. Like my marriage, the relationships I have with, how long it takes to make a record or a movie. It's like, as much as I would just love to sit down and play a video game tonight and watch TV, which is great. And there's nothing wrong with that. And so many nights of the week, that's what I'm going to do, is just play a board game with my wife and watch a cooking show or something. But the days you think about as you grow older and as you live, and probably on your deathbed, are the things you worked really hard for. You think about the time when you took the time out tonight to go help a friend or whatever, or you drove to a festival, all that effort you put in to go to the festival, that sticks out. And so I think I've always been a little bit worried about getting into committing too much time into making stuff that's very disposable to people. That's like, if it's that easy, but since it's connected, it all seems valuable to me. It all seems like worthwhile to, and also I think too, it's like, if you're talented, then it's just another place for you. Like, I don't quite know if I'm only in a month now into really doing the social media for the band, and I made a lot of different stuff. And I don't think I've come close to quite figuring out the best way to frame my personality and the band. But if I work at it long enough, I'll get better at it. And it'll be another place where people can connect. And it's like, ultimately the reason people share a movie, a book, TV show, a record is because it moves them and they tell a friend. That's the number one way. But I mean, these things work for a reason. Like if you see a cool, I've gotten into bands because of social media now, or like, we've played like for a while, like we jumped like, I don't know, 20% in our fan base because we did a couple big tours. Like it makes that big of a difference. It's just such a loud marketplace. There's so much good stuff coming out, music, TV, movies. And how will anyone know if you don't like, the squeaky wheel does get the grease. So it's like, I don't want to put it out and then be mad that no one paid attention when I barely I know. And now it's time to fight for the record. Like now it's time to we put all this work into it. I believe in Loriella more than anything I've ever made. It's got me and Nate and Tanner's hardest, best efforts. It's like everything I ever wanted to make. And so now it's like changing phases to okay, how do we go down swinging? At the end of the day, if those two guys agree with me that something we made is special, that's enough. The reviews won't matter to me. They might sour me a little bit, but if we three like it, that's enough. I respect those guys so much. And to me, Kevin, the best part of being in a band is being in a band. like being connected with those guys,
Mhm.
making stuff together. But my fulfillment aside, like we made these songs because we want them to connect with people, and we believe that they will, because it's expressing something super deep to us. So yeah, I mean, I'm trying to learn, and I'm enjoying it, and it's like you said, it's all experimental, and but like your friend Erica, like I think talented people, if they have a gift for creation, if they have a gift for communication, it may take them a while to figure it out. Like I feel like I've just become the songwriter I wanted to be in the last 2 or 3 records. So
Yeah,
I'm
and in my mind too, it's like when it comes to being an interview podcaster, if I go back to the interviews I did back in like 2020, 2021, I'll probably cringe at some of those, like,
Oh,
why did
yeah.
I ask that? Why did I do that? Why was I like that? But at the same time, I can see the progression from where I started with absolutely no experience in this to where I am right now. And it's a beautiful thing to witness. And it's through that time, through that effort, and through that experimentation that got me there. And then social media as well, growing a following on there. That all took time and effort and some experimentation, failures, successes, everything around there, much like what you're experiencing. But the key thing you said was what you were always focused on was building those deep connections. Whether it's deep connections with friends, family, why you love being in a band is because of you're in a band with people that you absolutely love, that you absolutely connect with, and you're creating music that deeply connects with all of you. And that's how we get to love music, because music that is deeply connected can deeply connect with us inside as fans as well. And when we look at social media content, when it's just the throwaway content, it's like, yeah, you might get a hate, it might go viral, but then it goes away right away. And people don't remember it because that's all that was there. It was so on the surface level and it didn't lead to anything in a deeper connection. When we look back in life and we look back at the memories you had, because you brought up, like driving to a festival or like, helping out a friend in need. I'll never forget this. I was my junior in high school and I was going for a run, and I saw a guy walk up to a corner, and he like a quarter mile away from where I was, and just waited there as I was running towards him, wondering what the heck does this guy was waiting for me? Do I got to do something? Am I going to get like kidnapped or something? Nah, it was a guy that was my best friend ever since I was a kid. And him and I just really didn't talk that much anymore. He was waiting on the corner, said hi to me, and asked me to go for a walk. I could have just said,
Wow.
No, I need to finish my run. But I said, you know what? Sure, I'll just go for a walk with you. Him and I became best friends again. We're back to being best friends this day.
That's awesome.
And it's all based on that deep connection. And I think back, and it's like, I think about those times. I think about driving to those festivals. I think about the times at concerts. I think about doing stuff like this. I think about those episodes where I had those like holy crap moments, or like those absolute, I can't believe that this actually happened, or I had this epiphany moment. It's an incredible thing, but it's all based on the deep connections that we make, not only with the art that we love, but with the people that make that art, or the people that absolutely impact our lives to the fullest. And when you can have social media, of course, it's going to be more, especially the content is going to be more on the surface level, but you can have it lead to those deeper connections. That's where you're really going to foster such a stronger relationship with the people that get into your music.
Yeah. Well, that's been the reason we've survived so long, is that we've made we haven't had a lot of opportunities we were on a small label that was incredibly wonderful for us, but we were also outside of our genre. I mean, we were on a hardcore and metal label, and we have hardcore metal, some tendencies. We certainly have heavy parts. We'll play like in baritones and drop tunings, but like, that's not exactly our scene. And so we never got to like, you get on the right label and there's sort of like a tide you can get in. We never had those benefits, but we did always work with good people we trusted, which is the best thing, to trust the people that are on your team. And we were able to really connect with the few. My wife always says like they may not be many, but it's deep. It's a deep connection. And so that's allowed us to like, I don't know a lot of bands that have lasted as long as we have, I don't know any bands that are as small as us that have lasted this long. And that's down to two things, like the connections with, and even all the guys who aren't in the band, we're still super close. Jeremiah lives around the corner. We get lunch like once every other week, and our kids play together, and he's still my best friend. And he left the band 2 years ago. And it wasn't for any bad reason. His life just got busy in a new way, and he wasn't one of the primary songwriters. So it was like, he could move on, but those connections with each other and those connections with people that are like, I saw you guys 8 years ago or 10 or 12 years ago, and you still remain one of my favorite artists. And thankfully that's kept us going with like, also like not stagnating. I think we've also been always excited to keep writing, to keep making new stuff. And we've never been really interested in remaking. People like a song we've done, great. It's there. I want to write a new one that doesn't sound like that one. And I'm also not looking to like I think some bands will like, they want to change so much that they like forget, they don't even understand their own DNA. And it's like, I think we're lucky that even though maybe Tanner and Nate are talented enough to kind of play anything, like I kind of accidentally can only make my epic songs. Whatever my epic sounds like is what I'm only capable of doing this. And so it helps kind of keep us on target that I accidentally kind of rein us in. And they say that too. Like Nate, who plays bass for us right now, but has played guitar for us in the past and produced this new record. He's incredible. He can play anything. But when I play guitar, it sounds like a My Epic riff. And so it's like, he's like, you need to write the riffs because I could write anything, but it'll sound like anything. And when you write a riff, it sounds like a My Epic riff. And sometimes they'll be like, I wrote an Aaron riff. Like I wrote a riff to sound like you. And I'm like, can we have a riff that sounds like not like me? Cause I'm kind of bored of it. But you know, those things, the connection we have to understanding our relationship to each other and kind of our relationship to how we play our instruments and the connection to the fan fans is everything. And it's funny. We were having a Patreon meetup with our patrons a few weeks ago, showing them the next 2 singles, which aren't out yet. Hot plug for our Patreon. And they were like, some of them have been around with us for like one of the guys I've known for 16 years. And he was like, you know, like so much has changed about the band, but I hear the same integrity as the first record. Like the first record was you being as honest as you could about where you were in life and what you're going through. And that's the same. And I was like, dude, that's the nicest compliment. That is, if people don't like the way that we've changed, I mean, that's just can't help it. People grow. But I'm trying to be true to the same like integrity that we had back then, but I'm not the same person that I was. So some things have changed, and that connection is incredible when they've been around that long. You know, it's really flattering. It's certainly don't feel like we deserve it.
Oh, it's definitely flattering. You think about like some of the other bands who have like, because again, we brought this up before we even started. I mean, you see the banner behind me with "We Came as Romans." It was, you listen to anything before 2018, it still has that "We Came as Romans" feel, that authenticity, the integrity behind it. But once the unfortunate passing of Kyle Pavone happened, they came out Dark Bloom in 2022, and it's all Dave singing. It's gonna have a different feel. But the integrity is still there because of how deeply they still have Kyle rooted within everything they do. Mm-hmm. So the integrity is still there, and people are still able to connect with that going forward, and even take what the band had gone through and use that as a catalyst to reflect on things they're going through in life and see where they're going from there. Recently, I had a friend whose dad just passed away, and whenever he thought about me, he always thought, he told me he thought about "We Came as Romans" because he just, every time he saw the music and he saw them in concert, he always thought of like me, because I was usually there with his son, hitting him in the pit, having a blast. So now every time I go to the past month, when I've gone to a show with his son, I've ended up wearing a "We Came as Romans" shirt when he was live. And then the night he died, we were at a show, and I wore another one literally because like my buddy would see me wearing it and he knew exactly why. Like that connectivity happened. Not only does that help me connect further with the band, but it helps me connect further with my friend in a moment of need with music that we absolutely love. Yeah. Like that's something I'm never going to forget. Like that moment when like just jumping into the pit, throwing 3 people to the side, going up and just give him a big ass hug. Yeah. Like that's something you don't forget. And that doesn't happen unless the integrity is there in the music and the deep connections are formed from that music.
Yeah, totally. And I grew up in the grunge at the tail end of the grunge era and punk and hardcore. I'm from the DC area. Mm-hmm. And then I grew up as a pastor's kid in the church, and all of those things, they agreed on integrity. And I even remember like a couple times when, especially early on as our career, when we were even more labeled as and you mentioned it before we were on that, we were really labeled as a Christian artist, and we've always just wanted to be a good artist. And if some of us are Christians, then that's a part of the story. But I'm not trying to sell myself as like the best Christian filmmaker. I just want to be a filmmaker, and my beliefs are part of what is my guiding star. But we played a hardcore festival for a few years in Pittsburgh called Sincerity Fest, and like we were the only non-hardcore band, and we thought like, man, they're gonna figure us out, and we're just gonna get beat up. Like I think they put us on because we were on Face Down Records, and they thought like, oh, there's like Comeback Kid and No Innocent Victim and like these really pedigreed hardcore bands. But we were there in this band. Do you know the band Advent is?
Yes.
Okay. So Advent are like kind of old friends of ours. Some of those guys used to be in a band called Beloved that I loved in college. And Advent showed up, and like Joe from Advent is like, I mean, they toured like, they're friends with like Have Heart and like, all, I mean, like they're very pedigreed. I mean, what label? They're a Metal Blade, like they're like a serious band. And they showed up and they liked us because of like the honesty and the integrity. And so they stood side stage where everybody could see us. And it was like, that was all it took for everybody in the audience could see them and to go like, okay, if those guys are paying attention, I'll pay attention. And then people like loved us. And there's no reason why they just got that the heart was the same. Like this is, if this is my last breath, this is what I want to say. This is what I want. And this is what I want to share with you. I'm here to share this with you. And so we got invited back several years. We'd be like the only non-hardcore band and like the only non-vegan band, like the only, like we're kind of accidental. Most of us are kind of accidentally straight edged. And like everybody was still super cool with us because it's like, when you give each other a chance and you listen, and there's that a chance to connect on integrity. And that's something we've always just like wanted there to be the utmost integrity. Like, I don't have like kind of crazy highfalutin thoughts that like people are going to be listening to our records in 100 years. They're not like, but I just feel like if I have a life and I have a gift, then gifts are given for a reason. And I want to make the most valuable thing. Like it never made sense to me. It takes me a long time to write songs. It's never made sense for me not to write about whatever. Like the Loriella is the 10 most important things I've been thinking about for the last 3 years. And yeah, in 10 years, I'll be a different person. But it's always made sense to like put all that on the line, but also you put yourself out there because you put it out there and then people could just smash you and be like, oh, you're lame and your thoughts are lame. But I'd rather go down swinging. And if me and some of the people, like the guys in my band and Matt Goldman, who produced most of our records, and Jason and the team at Face Down, and now Adam and the team at Tooth and Nail, if they also hear it and go, yeah, this is special, then that's cool. I'm willing to like, that's enough for me to go like, yeah, I'll put my naked self out there and put these thoughts out, for the world to judge. Like, that's kind of like, I don't know. I think that's the job of a poet. Like, to go, to come out and say something,
Oh, absolutely. And before jumping into Loriella, because I want to make sure we do that, like, especially talking about integrity and honesty in your music too, when you're able to play at a hardcore festival, people are able to get into it because that integrity. If anyone's interested, please jump back to our episodes with Dave from the band Stray View, because we really dive deep into songwriting integrity and vulnerability, and why metal is really high on that right now, why a lot of the bands that are really peaking right now are showing that not only in their content, but also in the style that they're writing. But also drop back to the episode we did in March with the rapper Echo, because he's been on 2 tours with From Ashes to New. He's really becoming a little bit more prominent even on Octane right now. And the connectivity happens there because of the vulnerability and integrity in his music. And I mean, I like it, and I don't really care for hip hop at all, but I like the guy. I like his music, so that fits in there. But jumping into Loriella, I do not want to miss out on that. And you said that this is like the most important stuff you've written, especially where you've gone through the past 3.5 years. So I want to hear more about that, man. When it came to this record, especially writing it, where were you inspired for this, and how did this all come into the fruition that it is going to be when it releases on June 28th?
Yeah, thanks, man. It was like a real sea change moment for us. I mean, we've been a band for so long. We've been with the same label with Face Down Records since 2008. And our management and stuff was like, maybe we ought to, it felt like the last few records we were like hitting a new stride, but we weren't growing that much. Like we kind of like were hitting a wall. And so it was like, what adjustments can we make? And so our management said, I think there's some other labels that might be able to offer new opportunities. And thankfully, like, Jason, who runs Face Down, is one of my best friends, and he gave his blessing. He's like, yeah, man, if someone else can. And so it's just always the best. Like we were texting a couple of days ago, and we reached out, and Tooth and Nail was one of the labels who reached back and offered us a lot of options we hadn't had before. And so that was happening at the same time. We just written 2 companion EPs called Ultraviolet and Violence. And we sort of took our dynamics and split them in half. Like Ultraviolet is like our kind of our dreamier, prettier side, and Violence is what you'd imagine. It's the heavier stuff. And they were records that really dealt with like fear and pain and doubt and like really tough stuff, which is, laced through all of our records. I mean, we're an aggressive rock band. So, and it just felt like in the last few years, like I've grown so much, like there's so much has changed, and it felt like, oh, we're getting a new start. And like, you only get to do this maybe once that a band has been, we get a whole new opportunity to do like more music videos and spend longer in studio. And like, we wanted to make the record different. So we had always made our records with Matt Goldman, who people may know from like Under Oath or The Chariot or like so many Copeland, so many other great bands. He's like a part of the team. But Nate, who's in our band, is an amazing producer. And in the past, he'd always been like, no, I don't want to produce it. I just want to be in the band. Like I do that for a living. I just want to play guitar and like chill, let someone else worry about it. And this time he was like, I want the ball. And there was enough times in the past where it's like, we were always rushed. And so 90% of every record would be, I don't, perfection is not really a word we would ever use, but would be right. And then there'd always be like 10% that's like, maybe just in one song or two, that's just not right. It sounds good. No one's going to say it doesn't sound professional. It's just not quite what we had in mind. And so we were like, if we're going to hit reset, let's for once take our time and turn it in when it's done, instead of like getting the songs 80% and then going to studio for 3 weeks and finishing. That's very punk rock. And that's how we always did it in the past. This time we're going to produce it ourselves, chip away at it. We also trust ourselves enough. We've been artists for long enough. All three of us are in a different ways. I'm a filmmaker. Tanner owns a chain of coffee shops and is incredible, like entrepreneur. Nate is a full-time producer. We're not going to let ourselves like sit forever in production, like stalemate. So we trusted ourselves to do it. And the label gave us the time and more resources. And instead of like taking a bigger paycheck, we were like, let's spend it all on the music. Like, let's make it sound like, I loved that. Like when Bon Iver first started becoming a bigger band and he was making money, instead of him like getting better hair or clothes, he just had a bigger band every time because he just wanted to make cooler music. And I like love that. So we took our time. We also hadn't written a full length in a long time because we are all bivocational. And it was like this time we could all carve out more space. It's going to be painful because it's harder to write 10 songs at once than it is to do 5. But like the fans were always like, I love the new EP. Can we get a full length? You're like, golly, we just put it out. Like, so we took our time, man. And I think the other big thing was like, all of that stuff was new, like producing it ourselves, we produced it over 3 studios over 2.5 years instead of over 3 weeks. That is a massive difference. And it allowed us to unleash another superpower that Nate had that we weren't using, which is like, he will just go in his studio and just go nuts. And he's also a good enough artist that he's not going to overcook it. Or like get too crazy with it. And then I think the other thing was like, I just wrote 2 records about pain and doubt and fear. And I just wasn't in that headspace. I was just like, I'm happier than I've ever been. I'm healthier. It's not to say I'm in denial. Like there's, tragedy all around me, but, and I walk with it with my friends, when they're in it, I'm with them, but it's not my tragedy. Like I'm in a good season. And so we just wanted to write a record that was joyful, which was a weird thing to say because we write aggressive music or we write moody music. But like, I think when the word triumphant was the first word I had. I want to write a triumphant record.
Yeah.
Like I want to write something that makes you want to spike your cell phone when you're listening to it or whatever. Or like feel the joy that you won't let out. And then I think we wrote, the first riff I wrote that kind of like worked was like the last riff on this song called Heavy Heart. It's like a big, heavy, fuzzy riff. It's really happy. And it's really giant. And that was like, it can work. We can write a record that still sounds like us, that isn't a false note from my epic, but that is more triumphant and more empowered. When it's aggressive, it's empowered aggressive. It's triumphant, it's joyful. And all of those things made me like feel like, oh, this is a new record. And then it just took way longer because honestly, we started writing it at the beginning of 2020. The pandemic happened. That was the speed bump. I have a kid. That slowed things down. We had our first daughter. Nate, who produced the record, had a bunch of health challenges. And then it just took us longer because we just kept going, like not until it's right. And it's the first record where I feel like the way I've described it to other people, it's not perfect and people can think what they want. That's their opinion. Like they're free to have it. Cause it's so much of how you, like people might love an old record of ours and they might not like this one because it might not be the one for them. It might not hit them in the right season of their life, but for me, it's like, we always knew that there was another gear to what we could do and to we knew what our sound was. And it's like, if you knew your whole life, you could run a 4-minute mile, but everything has to break right for you. Like if my training schedule is right and everything's healthy and I get the right shoes and my eating is right and the weather's right, I know that I can break 4 minutes. And that's what it always felt like. There was just a little extra gear. And this time when we turned it in, I was like, this is our 4-minute mile. Like it might not be perfect and who knows whether people will like it. I can't control that. But for us, it's the first time that I finished a record. And even in the first few interviews, Kevin, like people were asking me questions and I didn't have anything to say yet. Usually it's like, I'd have a lot to say immediately because I need to like put the record on a platter or give like 10 caveats or like help them understand. And this was the first time where it's like, dude, it's all there. Just go listen to it. Like it's exactly now I can talk about it because I'm thinking about that. But at first I was like, dang, I don't have anything to say because it's all in the songs. So it's a totally new season for us. And it's so exciting. And I mean, so many people that have been with us all along the way have like, 12, 15 years now as a band are like reaching out like, dude, I love you. I love the new stuff. I mean, I get the sense, and I felt it for other people when I've had other friends who've, when I see a friend like David join We Came as Romans and succeed, or, plenty of other bands that we've had that like have, like Silent Planet. I don't know if you know who they are, but they were okay. Like so Alex, who plays drums for them, plays drums for us now too. And they've been friends for a long time. And I remember when they were no one, and now they've blown past us. And I'm so excited. It's like, yeah, my boys made it, and I'm getting those texts like, dude, you hit another level. And at least from people who it matters to hear it from. So we're super excited. I mean, it is our most maximalist recording. It is, I think it sounds like us, but in 2024. And I think, and I've never been as fulfilled, for sure.
I think it's a good way to put it. And especially you're talking about writing a record that had more of that triumphant backing behind it. Because again, like I said in the intro, but I also saw from the press release about having lived long enough to lose your innocence, but still find joy, peace, hope, and faith in this world. Where you take a look at everything we've gone through the past 4 years. I will use, the United States, the microcosm, but across the world, we've gone through all the pandemic. We've gone through, every time you turn on the news here, there's always some negative political stuff you see. News is never positive. It's always negative. There's so much focus on breaking relationships, breaking these passions. You think about the economy too. People are not being able to afford things because of how bad inflation is and nothing's being done there. There's so much negativity that's coming through. And you lose your innocence in that. You lose the innocence that you had as a child where, the world isn't that great of a place at times. There's a lot of things that are wrong with it. There's a lot of things that are going to cause you pain. And there's so many people that write about that because of how ever present it is. But by trying to write a triumphant record, by still having, the My Epic sound to it, but having more of that triumphant positive feel, it's going to be able to take that idea and show us that even through all of this, we can look and we can find potential joys of what's making us happy now, what's making us enjoy life now, what's bringing us peace, what's bringing us that tranquility, what's bringing us that groundedness in life, what are we looking forward towards in the future, what do we have to accomplish, what do we have to strive for, and what do we still have to believe in going forward. There's so much that's still there that you can work through all that. And when people focus more in on that, then we start to see more of those things come to light. I think about the most recent Beartooth record that came out last year. I wasn't the biggest fan of it, but I absolutely love the fact that Caleb Chomo was finally talking about things that were at the utmost positive. It didn't have the aggressiveness that Beartooth records normally have, but it was triumphant. It was positive. And I see myself listening to them more and more now to try and feed off of some of that positivity when I need it the most. Even some of the songs that I did not like on the initial release of it, I still go back and listen to them now because I can pick out the positive moments. I can pick out that great feel. And I want to feel that, especially at times when things aren't going well and I need that positivity. Or when things are going well and I can use that music to amplify that even further and then spread that positivity throughout, my circle of people, whether it's whoever the fans of the podcast, whoever's listening today, whoever's listening in the future, my friends, my family, my coworkers, at my full-time job. If I can spread some kind of positivity and happiness to them when they come into work, then, I'm doing something right. Because we all enjoy working together and it's triumphant in a way. We're bringing that positivity in here. Yeah.
Well, and I also think that if I could say it this way, this record is a full frontal assault on cynicism.
Yes.
And I think that someone who becomes cynical, I fully understand that calculus. Like the math makes sense. If you live long enough, you'll see enough awful things to go for cynicism to make sense. Like it's all broken and it's all just getting more broken and it all ends in death. I think that cynicism is something to be fought against. I don't know that it can be most people don't choose to become cynical. They just become cynical because the life beats them down. But I do think you can make a choice to fight against it, whether or not you can't make a choice to not have it around you, but you can make a choice. No, I'm going to fight it. And I think we have to fight it because I think it's premature death. I think if you become cynical, I think that being critical is very valuable. I'm a critical person. And being a cynic at times, to get it to, not to get too in the words here, can be valuable, but to become cynical, to think everything is the worst, nothing ever good is ever going to happen. It's just agreeing to let your heart start dying before the rest of you does. And so, and plus, like, we have plenty of records. Like, the biggest song off our last record is, and my favorite maybe off the last record, is called Blacklight. And that whole song is basically looking someone in the eye who's kind of in denial and saying, like, you need to admit that this thing sucks, and you need to say you hate it, because it's good to hate this. This thing is evil. So say you hate it, and then you'll be able, it's like, if you don't admit something's bad, like, you live in denial, and it's like, dude, like, what, like, just admit it's bad. Like, admit that some things are wrong and you need to hate them. And so I didn't really worry too much about this record being like kind of like hallmarky or like fake, false, like kind of happy. Cause I'm like, we have plenty of songs that are like, this thing sucks. And we ought to say it sucks. It's just like there's every season of life. And so we've written songs that say that. And so it just felt time to write some songs that for me fit this season. And maybe like someone's like, I had people who, wrote me when Ultraviolet came out, which is a record about doubt and fear. And they were like, I just don't get this record. Like, I love you and I'm still going to come, but like, this one's not doing it for me. And then they'd reach out like a year and a half later, like, I totally get it now. All this stuff happened in my life and now it was here for me. And so, like, yeah, why not is going to guarantee that we're going to sync up with our whole audience, but all that we can do is be true to the stuff we're going through. And to me, it felt important to say, like, I get it if you feel cynical. And I'm also saying it'd be wise to just do your best to swing back at it, because it's just, don't give up. It's like saying, don't give up, don't give up, man. Like, and so, like, let me write these songs that are about the more beautiful, empowered, triumphant, joyful parts of my life right now. And let those songs stand besides the ones that are like angry in the right way. There's a time to be angry for sure. And hopefully there'll be songs that a lot of people need right now and want,
Yeah, because the people that listen to Violence too and really took more than like, you saw the negative approach to it. It's the people that were like, this just really isn't it for me, but then came back a couple of years later and that was the EP or the album that they absolutely need. Now this one might be that triumphant album, like the Beartooth one for me, where it was, I really wasn't feeling it because it just was, I didn't see the aggressiveness in it, but then all of a sudden when I needed it, it's there. And now I enjoy it so much more. It's going to give people that hope and give people that triumphant feeling of, when things are not going well, you can still find the positivity. And when things are going well, you can amplify on that. And people that are not feeling good about it or just not getting into it, yeah, maybe it just is going to take time for them to need that positive boost that the album's going to provide. Maybe they're going to be feeling positive and it's going to amplify that feeling. And they're going to become so happy and enthralled with it that they're going to fully enjoy it. And like you said, it is important to be critical. It is important to have some sort of like cynic times too, because critical allows us to analyze things that are not good.
Yeah.
Totally. Kind of having,
this should be better. This is not good. Yeah.
Yeah. Having like a question, cynic allows us to question things if the intent is even good or not. Being cynical locks us into that. And that's not what we need. So we need to be able to do that at times. We don't want to get locked into that. And this album with Loriella, it allows us to not get locked into that and still see the positivity that's going to be radiating throughout life as we continue to go along this journey, as we know more negativity is going to be coming up. But the more we still try and bring some of that positivity and bring those positive connections through music and through this stuff, it's just going to build stronger and stronger communities, not only within your community of fans, but within, listeners, fans, musicians, our own individual circles as well.
Yeah, totally, man. Well said. And like, all I can do is be honest, and we can be honest with the stuff that felt like prescient to us right now and put that out there. And then hopefully it'll find the people that need it and that want it. And I just think being like I said, the record is in a lot of sense about, like the death of innocence, but it's like, there is a kind of wise hope. There is a kind of wise joy. That old man who's 90 and I've got a neighbor named George and he walks his dog like 6 times a day down our street. And I see him and he shuffles. His body's not so good. But he's in this phase where he's just like savoring a good meal. But like his life was a good meal. Like he'll tell you about his wife and the town she was from in Cuba and how he met her. And he's like in this new season where it's like part of eating a good meal is like oh man, that was good. Like the sitting there afterwards and like digesting it. to watch that even someone who's that old isn't just like, well, all that's left for me is to like cover myself in dirt. He's like sitting there and like savoring the 70 plus years that he's lived. And he's like, oh, I don't know what's around the next corner. I'm hopeful. It's like, wow, man, that really, that really changes things for me. And so how much of that can we spread is massive for sure.
Yeah, I can relate to that too, because after my grandma died back in 2013.
Sorry, man.
My grandpa was very just kind of like, it happens, people end up passing on. But my
unfortunately, it's one of the things grandparents do.
Yeah, but my grandpa, of course, they were married for over 60 years at that point, close to 65. And so it was somewhere, he, of course, was having to deal with that. Very healthy guy, too. And ended up having a stroke in 2016, but he was a huge Cubs fan. Cubs were in the World Series. That kept him going, and it was the connection him and my brother had. My brother's a huge Cubs fan. My brother went to go watch a game with him in the hospital, World Series game.
Wow.
And it was stuff that and then he would always want to still come up north too and go fishing with us, even though we were just on the pier. We just enjoyed being out there, and it was somewhere it's like he savored all of those moments where even, you're later in life, your body's not doing so well. Your wife is gone. Your family is still there for you. But the moments that he absolutely loved and just absolutely savored over were the moments where he got to spend with his grandsons and his great grandson too. Of course, his daughter still loved his daughters, but until he passed away, unfortunately, at the end of 2021. But
sorry, man.
Thank you. But as we continue on, it was like, it was somewhere he still found that positivity in life. And some of the stuff that he even said too was, I never would expect him to say it when my grandma was around. But when he said it when he was just by himself, it was just like, you made some of these moments even better than they possibly could be.
Wow.
And it's something I still don't forget. Like, there's moments from the last time he was up north, or the last time I saw him. I have a birthday card from him that it was the last thing he ever gave me, and I've never thrown it away because because he signed it and everything. He left a little message in there. And it's like, he's still like, even, as he was going on the way out, like he still cared. And it was stuff like that. And it's like, even when I'm feeling down, it's like, I can look at that. I've got his old fishing hat next to it too. It's like, I can still see the positivity in that, even in, times where things aren't going so well. So
that's really special, dude. That's really special. And even good movies have endings. Even good stories have endings.
Even good stories have endings. And for everyone that needs that positivity boost, Loriella is coming out in June 28th, so be ready.
Yeah, and that's not to say that it doesn't rip. I mean, this record is, it's like we've always kind of stood in the middle space of like, I have a high voice and I sing, so that is what it is. And then we like to do drop tunings and write these. We grew up on like the Deftones and grunge and all that stuff. So it's not like it's not just all flowers. I mean, there's a couple of really pretty songs, but like, the record rips. It was important to us that this record still have like our full dynamic scope. Like there's heavy songs on this record. They're just framed a little differently in the energy. And it was exciting. That was a new exciting challenge after all these years. Like, oh yeah, how would that energy apply to our whole toolbox? Like we don't want to put the toolbox away. Like we want to crank the amps all the way up. We want to play with all the drums and everything. And it wasn't even, honestly, it was like finding it instead of creating it. It was like what we wanted to make, and it just came out. We left one song on the cutting room floor because we're like, it doesn't really fit. But even that song kind of had a puffed up chest in a cool way. Like, and yeah, our patrons have heard it and they're like, you got to release that as a beat. It was just a little too off the beaten path of the record. But so I'm excited for people to hear it. I mean, we've got the 2 singles out already and another one coming out on Friday. And we've been super thankful for the response. Can't wait to get out and play the songs with people and share them together live.
Oh, so everyone just get ready, because you're going to see My Epic coming your way, and you're going to get that positivity influx, the My Epic way coming your way, June 28th. Aaron, I got one more question before we wrap this up. It is one of my favorite questions to ask every single artist I've had on for the past, I want to say 9 months now. Okay, it's cool. A way for me, the audience, and everybody else to get into more new music and to get more to know about the stuff that you love. So I'm looking for 3. Can you name me 3 artists that you absolutely love right now that you would love to see more people get into?
Okay, give me a second. I got to pull up my playlist.
You and like half the people I ask this question have to pull up their playlist, and I do not mind that whatsoever, because it's like, yep, we're actually going to check, what are we listening to right now, and what is that thing?
Well, we have a playlist that's inspired by that inspired the record. So if anyone wants to look that up on Spotify, it's got all kinds of dope stuff on it. And runs the gamut from like super heavy to super not heavy. But man, if you want me to be really like in the moment, I just had a friend share this guy Petey with me. Petey, like Peter, but with a Y. And he has a song called "Don't Tell the Boys," which if you should watch the video. It's about it's about loving your bros and being there for your bros, and it's really cheeky. And it's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like indie rock, but when you see him live, it's a little more punk than that. And then there's like lots of chill wave elements, and he kind of, I don't know, he's his own thing. And I just found him like a week ago, and I really loved "Don't Tell the Boys." And he also has a song called "The Freedom to F Off," which also rules so hard. So Petey would be one. Let's see, what else would I be really? So I love the Japanese House. Have you heard her?
No.
She just put her new record out last summer, and it was my record. It was my summer record. She's a singer-songwriter from England, and the guys from the 1975 like help her produce a lot of it.
Okay.
She's really got a unique voice. Kind of reminds me of early Imogen Heap, if you know who that is, but it's very electronic and forward. It's just good pop music, but it's like not shallow at all. And she has a song on her last record called "Sunshine Baby" that is like my summer bop. It's like cooking pancakes with the sunshine coming through in the morning. That would be that. And then let's see, one more. I want to say something heavier. I mean, everybody knows that the new Boy Genius record is good. Have you heard of what's his name? Have you heard of Gene Dawson?
No, I haven't actually.
Okay, Gene Dawson is cool. Look up the song "Three Heads." It is like a mashup of like, there's something punk rock and hardcore, like early punk rock and hardcore, and like DIY bedroom, like garage rock. But then he's an African American dude from like, he puts off equal like rock and like inner city vibes, and it's just somehow it's really cool. Like I'm really kind of obsessed with what I'd call like genre fluid music, like artists who are coming out like, I mean, obviously the most famous one in me right now is Post Malone, who's just like, it's a rap song today, it's a rock song. I'm going to cover Nirvana this week and do it right. And then next week I'm releasing a country song, and like, I don't care about country at all, but like, I respect Posty because I think he's a good songwriter. And secondly, I think he always means it. He's like, I grew up liking everything, so why wouldn't I just do everything? Like this, I feel like the era of snobbishness is going away, and people are more like you said with the rapper, like, if it's good, it's good. If you like it, you like it. And if I don't like it, that's fine. Like whatever. But I appreciate that we live in a new era where like, I feel like when I was coming up, there was like so many camps, and there was so much like, that's not cool and this is cool. A lot of yucking other people's yum. And so obviously being genre fluid can go wrong so easily, because you can be good at something and try something else and like not hit. Yeah. But it's cool to see these artists who are young, who have grown up on all of it. And so they were listening to pop punk, and they're listening to hardcore, and they're listening to country, and they're listening to rap. And maybe they kind of come into the industry through one channel, but when they get enough power, they're like, yeah, I want to make this too, because I can do it, and I know it as well as my own genre. And so Gene Dawson is like one of those guys who his stuff's all weird, but I'd say check out the song "Three Heads" by Gene Dawson. Look up the video; it's cool. "Sunshine Baby" by the Japanese House, and then look up if you look up what was the one? "Don't Tell the Boys" by Petey. Yeah. Watch the video. All three watch the video. So I think they'll all be fun, and they were all at least the first two are songs that we listened to a lot in the writing of the record that don't sound anything like the record, but.
So those are some good suggestions. Everyone go check them out and enjoy. And now I must bring this podcast conclusion with three things. So first things first, when it comes to My Epic, when it comes to Loriella coming out on June 20th, you're going to make sure you're following along with the band on everything. Streaming the album when it comes out, pre-saving it before it comes out, getting some merch, and making sure you know where they're playing so you can go see them live. Best way to do that is go to the description of the podcast below. Links and labels for everything, social media, streaming, merch, website, everything's going to be down there for you to be in the know with My Epic. I'm doing all this for you. I'm your own personal Google when it comes to My Epic, so go down and don't make me forget about it. And now, Aaron, when it comes to number 2, I have a promise I make to every single guest on the podcast. I enjoy from the podcast, and you absolutely hit on this. I know we talked about this beforehand about getting coffee one of the mornings during Louder Than Life, and you said you would get it, but this is the promise to you. It is when I get to see you perform live for the first time. I will look for you. I will find you. I will come and say hi. And first round is on me, whatever you want.
Dude, thank you. I will for sure take you up on it. I hope we get to hang out sometime. That'd be awesome.
Oh,
that's super gracious.
We will. It's called, if we don't hang out between now and Louder Than Life, it's called Louder Than Life 1 in the mornings, because I'm always waking up before everybody else does. And it's just like, well, I could use some coffee now, man.
Well, when we jump off, I'll give you my number so we don't have to go through the management this time. And I also want to say about your boy Kevin, that you obviously already know is a treasure because you listen to his podcast, that I missed our recording last week, and he was super gracious to give me a second chance, and he hasn't mentioned it when he could have rubbed my nose in it. So thank you so much, man, for having me back on and being a real one who gives people second chances in this world. We need more people like you.
Oh, no, thank you very much, but no need to rub it in whatsoever, because...
Too late. I'm not taking it back. I'm back.
Well, I'm going to change it up on it, because even though that happened, look at what came out of it. We got a great episode, great connection, and we're going to get to see each other at some point in 2024. That's the key.
Let's do it.
So now it's time for number 3. Aaron, I can't say goodbye to you because we got plans now, man. We got plans. We got a connection here. Also, right. I made a promise to you, and I would love to be back on the podcast again in the future. So this is not goodbye, my friend. This is, I'll see you later.
Sounds great.
Well, folks, I've interviewed with Aaron from the band My Epic, and now it's time for Kevin's final thought. My final thought's coming in this type of form. So we're talking about, when it comes to social media and how it's so surface level. A lot of stuff on social media is so surface level, especially stuff that is short form content, TikTok, that kind of stuff. And it's all meant now to generate likes, to generate more followers, and to just get people in the door. And don't get me wrong, there definitely is a time and a place for that. But this type of content that we've seen that has been getting a lot more traction, not only with us, but throughout studying other people in the industry, other musicians, other bands, is content that is able to have a much deeper connection to the music. And it could be anything. Look at Patient 67. Yeah, they post funny memes. Yeah, they post funny random videos as well. And they always include their music in there. But it's also how they use that social media time and how they use that content, where Tom is always responding to people and always using an opportunity to create those deep connections off of that. Think about the guys in Opal and Sky, the fun gatekeeper stuff, just having a blast with it, having a blast with the stuff that they're doing. It gets to be funny. It gets to be have a little bit more of that like 1950s like promo feel, especially for their new music that's coming up. There's a lot of great stuff coming out from them, and they are able to connect off of that. When people are able to form deep connection with the music they love, that brings many more fans in, and that brings much more positivity into their lives. And when bands are able to do that and use social media to their advantage in that way, it's a big thing. And I love what My Epic is doing, realizing that and figuring out how to do that. And I wish more bands would, so we wouldn't have to get every single band just reacting to the what are these emo songs? Oh, were they cringe, overplayed, that kind of stuff. No. That just is surface level. It might get some attention, but why would I want to consider your band if that's just what it is? Make me want to consider your band. That's not just saying make me, but make your audience, make people that don't know you, make them want to see you. From Ashes to New also does a great job at this too, so check them out. When it comes to My Epic, though, go subscribe to the podcast where it says Find My Epic online, links, labels for everything, where you can stream the new album, where you can go get it, where you can see these guys on tour, where you can enjoy the time with these guys, everything like that. So go and follow along with them. Also follow us on social media for the Chord Progression Podcast, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Hit subscribe right down here or on the good old Spotify and good old Apple Podcasts. Hit the like button on the episodes as well. Help push us in the algorithm. I want to thank you for that. Thank you, Aaron, for being on the podcast. Cannot wait to meet you for good old coffee before Louder Than Life one of those days. So on that note, that's what you guys think for listening to the Chord Progression Podcast. My name is Kevin, and you guys know how I end every single one. It's the big, healthy, and hearty. See ya! Yeah.